Hi, I'm Julia and this is my shed. So if you remember a couple of episodes back we temporarily fitted, this is actually a Modelworks or Winson lubricator, but we don't have two of them, we only have one. So I think what we're going to do today is actually make two new lubricators that match, because I've got the parts to make them, or most of them. The main bit missing is this actual outer casing, so yeah, I'm going to take this off and then we'll go to the bench and have a look at what bits I've got and what we need to make. Okay, so just a little recap on what we have and haven't got. So I bought this off eBay, and this is I believe from a Winson kit. So it's an earlier design, and this is the latest design you can buy from Steam Fittings. So a couple of things we need to look at really is if we look at the height that the outlet comes out of, this is too low down. We've got the slide bars about here, so we need the outlet to come out at this height. So I could modify this design, make this area shorter, which is probably my preferred option at the moment, but we'll come back to that. What I need, I quite like the more modern design because it does away with the crank, and also I think I've got the crank parts. Yeah, here they are. So I've got crank parts for this style of design already. What I don't have is this internal body, I don't think. So I need to have a look through, but I like this design because it just uses a spring to do the return. You know, I've even got the springs, whereas this style uses the sort of Scotch crank idea. It's a bit more difficult to manufacture. So kind of internally we want something that looks like this. Externally we want something that looks like this. So that's the problem we have to solve this week. So what I'm actually going to do is not use either of these two, but what I'll do is I've got some brass square tubing. It's 1 inch square. I've got some plate, so the idea would be to silver solder on like this. This is conveniently the right width, so that's the kind of idea I'm doing. And then I'd need to add in a boss as well. So I've got quite a lot of parts. You know, I've got these right angled adapters. These came with the kit, so it's obviously designed for perhaps the more modern style, but just need to reduce this height somewhat. So we've got some internals, but I don't know if these are for this particular design or whether they're for that design. So yeah, we need to I'll have a rummage through all this lot and decide what we're going to do. Obviously I've got the original drawings which this design was based on, so I can compare it to this as well, so that's quite useful. I'm just dismantling the commercial one so we can just have a look at what parts I've got and what parts I haven't got. Okay, so we've got the modern Steam Fittings lubricator taken to pieces now. Had a bit of a job getting this threaded part unscrewed from here, because you need quite a deep socket to get to this. I think it's 1/2 inch. Well, I think I used a 13mm deep socket. But yeah, I think I haven't got any of these parts, so that's going to be an interesting part to make. We've got 2 holes going through at an angle, looks like 45 degrees. That's where the oil actually enters the pump, and there's quite a nicely machined flat surface at the bottom, which is where the O-rings butt up against. That shoulder provides somewhere for the spring to sit, which is quite nice. We've got the springs, so quite handy. So you've basically got the main pump body, O-ring, spacer. The spacer height changes the amount of oil that's pumped on each stroke. Then you've got the lower O-ring, which acts as a seat for this ball, and then we've got a spring just to preload the ball onto the seat, and then we've got a little spring body that holds the ball in place, and obviously that butts up against that helps compress the O-rings. And then you've got the usual conical fitting on the bottom for a pipe fitting. So I've got quite a lot of these parts. I've got the O-rings, I've got all the springs, I've got these shafts, I've got these, I've got a couple of these anyway, what would you call them, crank I suppose. So actually, yeah, these might be usable. Yes, because they are slightly shorter as well, which is kind of what we want. And we've got, yeah, so we've got the nuts as well. So we've got a lot of the part, and we've got obviously these right angle fittings, which I only need for the 2 I'm making for Britannia. So we have got quite a lot of them. Yeah, so I'm sure I can find a ball bearing or 2. And it's just basically the pump body, the plunger I haven't got, and the actual casing itself. So we've got some material to make the casing. I'm sure I've got some hex bar stock to make this. I'll have a look at how this is manufactured, but I think it's possibly just machined from normal steel. So that's quite a small part from quite a large blank. So we'll need to. That might be quite interesting to make. Might be easy to make in 2 parts actually, but we'll see. So off camera, I've been starting to get some raw stock together. I've got some 1/2 inch hex to make the main body. While I was doing this, I was sort of I was thinking one of the important things about, or something that you gain with experience really, is when you start looking at parts you've got to make and sort of selecting materials, you start to get a feel for where accuracy is required and where it isn't. So as an example, I'm just going to show you this part. So commercially this is made in 1 piece, which is, yeah, their decision. But I don't know if you can really see here, but the finish isn't actually that great, and that finish is rubbing on a rubber O-ring, and that's obviously going to wear the O-ring. So anyway, looking at this part, the most critical dimension is this diameter, and it's basically 1/8, and that's sized to match the O-rings, the bore of the O-rings. The size of the head is not particularly, it's about 9mm. It doesn't really matter, and I don't think the thickness matters particularly either. Probably the length does, and if you can see, there's a little chamfer there. That's quite important, just to ease the shaft as it goes into the O-ring, so it doesn't damage the O-ring. So if you were making this from, you know, some 9mm bar, this in comparison is quite thin. You know, you're taking off a 3mm cut effectively. Now if you're using a CNC machine, you could probably do that cut in one pass and you get decent results, because obviously if you're trying to just do a skim pass on something that thin, it's going to deflect a lot. But on a Myford, there's no way I could do that cut in 1 or 2 passes. So for my case, and thinking about where the accuracy lies, I have got some 1/8 silver steel, and this is obviously ground. It's got a little bit of corrosion on, that'll clean up, but it's obviously ground finish, so that's a really lovely smooth finish. So what I'm thinking is that I'll use this to make the shaft, just some 9mm bar to make the head, drill a hole through the head, and then silver solder this shaft into the head, because again, this area here is not particularly critical. We've just got the spring bearing on the bottom of here, so having silver solder in this area where the head meets the shaft doesn't really make any difference. It's not going to affect the performance at all. So and that actually is going to be quite easy for me to make. You know, I like silver soldering. Hopefully it will sit sort of like that and not deflect too much. Obviously it's a little bit fiddly to silver solder, but although it's an extra operation, and you probably just need to clean up the head and obviously get rid of any oxides, what you end up with is a really nice part that's got, you know, a ground finish in the critical dimension. So yeah, I think it's always something that's worth assessing when you're making something. You know, what's important. You know, this on this part, the hex isn't important. I can just use the preformed hex bar and it's not critical. Whereas the inner bore, which is 1/8 on this part, is very critical. You want a nice reamed finish, so that this moves up and down smoothly. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that, because it's part of my thought process when I'm sort of assessing how to make parts. And I think trying to think through, some people like to write down machining operations. I'm not usually that organised, but I do try and think through, you know, the order in my head. So yeah, so just a few thoughts on machining operations really. So I'm going to make the pump body first from 1/2" hex brass. It does call for phosphor bronze, but I think brass will be fine. So I'm going to start machining from this side. So it's a 3/8 32 TPI thread, so we can machine that up quite quickly. And then I'm going to drill one size below 1/4 inch, and then I've got a 1/4 inch end mill there that will just give me a nice flat bottomed corner. Then we've got one size below 1/8 inch, so we'll go through with that, and then I've got an 1/8 reamer. So if we do all of those operations from this side, including the 1/8 hole through, that will mean all of the circular features will be concentric. The outside of this isn't particularly important. All it's doing is acting as a guide for the spring. But we want the hole concentric to this hole. So the actuating pump goes through the centre of the O-rings. So we have got some wiggle room there, but if we can get them all concentric, it's all the better, I think. So I'll basically machine all this end and from this side, and then we'll turn around and machine that. And I think if I can probably get a tool with that angle on roughly. Again, that angle's not particularly important. It's just to provide an easier to machine area to get these angular holes through. Okay, we'll face off the hex bar and 0 our DRO. Just set my DRO so I know roughly where we've got to. This is where you get completely covered in tiny shards of brass. There we go. Next job, we'll just round off the edges a little bit. Just make it easier to get the die started. Okay. Right, I'll get the die set up and we'll get it made. So I'm using the tailstock die holder today. So we'll just apply a bit of pressure and then we'll just turn the chuck by hand. It's quite a fine thread, the 32 TPI, so I don't know if we could jog this. Shall we have a go? Oh yes, that'll work. That makes life a bit easier, doesn't it? Okay, let's try and reverse it out. Lovely, that's perfect. We do need to just undercut there a little bit. We'll just come in with the blade tool and just plunge it in a little bit. Just hopefully just gets rid of that shoulder. Reshamfer that. The threads have raised the metal slightly. Okay, so next job we can do is drill through the 7/64. So I'm just looking at the part that we're making. If this drill goes all the way past where we've got the flutes, that's just about the right depth. Handy little tip in this particular case. So we will need to keep cleaning the flutes because this is quite a deep. Anything over 3 times diameter depth I think is classed as a deep drill. I think something like that. Could be wrong. Answers in the comments please. We're getting close now, so I'm just cleaning the flutes out so they don't jam, because we don't really want to break the drill off in the part, because drills are expensive. Well, good ones are anyway. And don't want to waste our time faffing about making a new part. Right. So I think that is about right for the depth. Next I'm going to go in with a reamer. So again, we're going to have to clean this off occasionally. Because we're reaming quite a deep hole. And the flutes on the reamer are quite easily filled up. Could leave this till I'd done the bigger hole actually, but might be a better way of doing it. So we're only actually reaming the part that needs to be reamed. So I should do that. I should change my order of operations for the next part. Right, I think we're up to the end there. Yeah. So that should be a nice 1/8 reamed hole. Again, we can use the part that's going to match effectively. That seems pretty good. Next job is to open this hole out. So I'm just using a bit of a tape as a depth stop. I don't actually want to go all the way up to the tape. I just want to leave about a mil. That's that. And then finally we're going to open out to the 1/4 inch size with the 1/4 inch end mill. The slot drill would be better, but I haven't got a 1/4 inch slot drill. Lovely. So that's given us a really nice flat bottom hole. Just going to check the depth of that. Yeah, spot on. So I can now part this off and then make the next part. One thing I have found is this 6-jaw chuck, it actually isn't that great holding hex bar. I think it would be brilliant, but you have to get the piece exactly right. Use my handy bendy usual bit of so, 24.5 long. Go slightly over. So that's the part. So we'll make another one of those. Okay, so I've turned the part round and put it in a collet chuck. So I did actually invest in some Imperial ER25 collets. So this is actually a 3/8 collet. So the first job is just to shave 0.1 of a mil off the end of this. I just part off very slightly bigger than I need to. Okay, so that's it now to length. Oops. Wasn't as tight as I thought it was. Yeah, I think I was a bit greedy there. I think that was because we were still on the hex part. We're a little bit below 3/8 in the diameter, so with it being threaded as well, I think that was probably just a little bit too much. Something had to give. Initially going down to 9, which is the extent of the conical area. Now just keep going down until we get to 1/4 of an inch. Chamfer on the end, so it looks nice. Need to find a tool that I can use just to put the 45° on this this shoulder. So if we were in a production environment, we'd grind a special tool that would actually allow us to cut this diameter and the shoulder as well. But I found a threading tool, I think it is. It should get in there. So fingers crossed, I think. that's as good as we're going to get now. It's quite an awkward spot to get into. Okay, so this is my setup for drilling these diagonal holes. I did think they were about 45. They are about 45, but just not quite exactly 45. So I've sort of lined this up by eye to be vertical. Now the modern design uses a 1.4mm drill, which is what I've used as just to set up my angle, and it's only got 2 holes, if you can see there. Now the original design calls for 1/16 drills, which is about 1.6mm, and requires 4 of them. So I think what I'll do is I'll put 2 holes in, but I'll use the slightly bigger one. The fact that I've got a box full of these, so when I break a few, it's not the end of the world. It's got nothing to do with that decision. So what I think I'll do is I'll keep this fixed in the vise to keep the angle, and then I'll take these out and rotate them round. So I'll try and keep a flat about horizontal. Not critical, I don't think. And prior to drilling, I've got sort of these stubby. It's probably a better one to actually see what it is. Sort of stubby, sort of spot facing drills. So they're quite stiff. So I think I'll just spot with that one first, because that seems to get in all right, and then follow up with the 1/16. And hopefully we won't break any drills at all, and it'll all be lovely. We can always hope, can't we? So I'll get that set up, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so that's spot faced. Right, that's the first hole done, so 3 more to go. Let's see if we can do it without breaking a drill. So next thing is to rotate this round so that the previous hole's at the bottom as best we can. Get that there. Not critical, but we'll try and get them opposite each other anyway. So hopefully you can see that. So they've both gone through. Just about see there. So hopefully that's good enough. So I'm just going to run the reamer through by hand just to deburr the hole. I think this reamer's a bit newer, so I'll run that one through as well. And we'll do that one as well. Not sure if you can see, but I can feel there's a little bit of it's actually cutting. That's the silver steel. It's a bit I can certainly feel where the burrs were. But that seems to be okay. So the next job is we're going to make the plunger. So just for Kev, I'll have some gratuitous hacksaw action. So what I'm going to do is drill a hole in each end of this for the 1/8 bar, and then I'm going to silver solder them in place, and then once that's done I shall put this in a collet and just cut off the head so it'll look like that. We'll just put in a parting tool, so that's why I've made this a bit longer, so that we can put either end in the chuck, and there's enough to hold it. So that's a trick, if I can sort of make a part on both ends of a piece of stock, it just speeds things up quite a lot. So that's what we're aiming to do. Okay, so now I've got this piece of metal with holes in each end. So what I'm going to do is put the silver steel in, measure what distance I need for each side to get the right, because obviously that's a hard stop, to get a matching plunger length. And we'll do that for both sides. I'll try not to get them mixed up, and then I'll sort of cut the silver steel to length. Make sure it's got a nice chamfer on the end, and then we'll silver solder these into the head. Okay, so you've just seen me face off and just chamfer this. So this is an arbitrary length. I don't know what the actual length of this is yet, but it's too long. So I'm going to put it in one of the holes in the piece I've just made, and I'll measure how much I need to take off this, and then I'll do that in the lathe. So I've just measured that, and it's just under 1 mil too big. So we'll zero up the DRA and take 1 mil off the end of there. I'm just taking 1/4 mil cuts here because it's silver steel. It's quite tough. I don't want to break the tip off my cutting tool more than it already has off it anyway. I'll just round that off a little bit as well. I don't want to damage our O-rings. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see what I'm trying to do here. This is the silver steel, and that distance pushed, when this is solidly in the hole, that's exactly the same as this. So what I want to do now is silver solder these in. I've obviously got to be careful that stays pushed firmly into the hole, which can be a problem if you've got some wet flux in there. It will turn to steam and it will try and force this out. So I need to get some weight on the top of that. So yeah, that's what we've got to do next. Yeah, I could do some silver soldering. Once these are silver soldered, we can then put this piece in the lathe and sort of just cut these off slightly longer, and then mount it on this part and just turn the head to suit. Yeah, so let's carry on with that. Okay, so I'm going to do one end at a time. I'm going to try using the little chef's torch initially. If that doesn't work, we'll have to use the bigger torch. This is sort of a bit borderline because there's quite a bit of mass there. So I've had to put quite a bit of weight on to try and stop that popping out when it gets warm. So we'll see how well this works. I think I'll just gently heat this bottom part first. You see that pop out then? That's what I was afraid of. Okay, so I'm applying a bit of downward pressure to counteract the steam. So hopefully the steam will come out the gaps around the pin. Okay, so I think we've got decent flow all the way around that now. So we'll let it cool down. So what I don't want to do is quench this because obviously it's going to harden the silver steel, so we'll just let it cool down of its own accord. So time to finish my cup of coffee. Hopefully you can see I've got a really nice fillet silver solder there. It's spread out a little bit on the head, but I'd rather a little bit too much than not enough in this particular case. So that should be nice and strong. Let's hope it's all still in a straight line and the right length. So as you can see, we have oxidized the plunger, so I need to. I've got some quite fine emery paper. I'm just going to clean off all the oxidation. So hopefully you can see that what I thought was silver solder coming up here is actually just sort of an image of where the flux had ridden up the shaft a little bit. All I can see in the sort of the silver solder, which is slightly gold colour, is just a really nice fillet. So I think we're good on that. I'm just going to double check, but if that's okay, we just need to part off the head at 1/16 and clean the head up. So really pleased with that. That's looking really good. Set my zero. Just want to come out just slightly more than 1.6 mil. And we'll part it off. Now when we get to near the middle, we will actually be parting off silver steel, so we might need to add a bit of lubrication in there, but let's see how we get on. definitely feels, you can feel it, it's a lot tougher there. So hopefully it's not hardened though. Okay. Perfect. So as luck would have it, we've managed to part this off at exactly 1.6 mil. So that's the diameter we want. So we don't want to take any more off the head, so we'll just clean up where we've parted off. I think I will just clean up the head so it's nice and smooth as well. There we go. Lovely jubbly. Yeah, I think that'll do. So after starting to edit this video, I realised I've got an absolute ton of footage. So what I'm going to do is split the video into 2 parts. So what we've produced now is we've got the new pump, what's called the pump body, and you can see we've done a nice, that's quite a nice job. It just needs a bit of cleaning. And we've done the plunger, so that assembly is now ready. So that shows how it works. We've got the spring there which returns after the cam's pushed it, so that's our pumping action. You can see the plunger poking through the pump body. So we'll need to check that the amount it comes into the body is correct. I'll compare that with the commercial one, but hopefully that's okay. So I'm going to leave it here. Apologies for the some of the lathe footage being a bit under par. I will have serious words with the camera person. But I hope you've enjoyed the video anyway. Like, share and subscribe. Leave comments, always interested. And I'll see you in the next one.